Let me tell you something that will decide your future faster than talent, education, or even luck. It's the people you choose to spend your time with. My mentor once said to me, "You'll become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And friend, when I looked at my circle, I knew why I was broke, tired, and going nowhere. The rule about friends is simple. They either pull you up or drag you down, and most never even notice it happening. In this video, I'm going to give you the exact rule about friendships and associations that changed my entire life. You'll learn why your circle silently shapes your habits, your income, your mindset, and your future. More than that, I'll show you how to evaluate your associations, how to protect your energy from negative influences, and how to build a circle that lifts you higher instead of dragging you down. If you've ever wondered why you're stuck, even though you're working hard, this may be the missing piece. By the time we're done, you'll know exactly why your friends matter more than you think, and how to make changes that can alter the course of your future. See, I know how easy it is to overlook the power of associations. We tell ourselves they're just friends, it doesn't matter. But let me ask you, how many times have you picked up the habits, the language, or even the attitudes of the people you spend time with? It happens without us noticing. You laugh at their jokes, you mirror their routines, you adopt their philosophy. And philosophy, not circumstances, is what shapes your life. That's why I say the rule about friends is one of the most important rules you'll ever learn. Ignore it, and you'll pay the price in years of wasted effort. Respect it, and you can change the whole direction of your life. So here's what we'll do in our time together. First, I'll share with you the exact words my mentor gave me about the power of associations and how that one principle changed my future. Then, we'll break down the rule about friends into practical steps you can apply today. I'll show you how to recognize when your circle is holding you back, how to manage difficult relationships without guilt, and how to deliberately build a new circle that challenges you to grow. And along the way, I'll share the same lessons that turned me from broke at 25 to financially independent just a few years later. Some of these ideas may surprise you because they go against what most people believe about friendships. But if you'll stay with me, you may find that today becomes a turning point in the way you choose your circle and ultimately in the way you choose your destiny. Here's something most people completely miss. Your circle is shaping your destiny every single day, whether you realize it or not. It isn't just the words your friends speak or the advice they give you. It's the silent influence of their example, their habits, their thinking, and their standards. You might think you're immune to it. You might tell yourself, "I make my own choices. I walk my own path." But spend enough time around anyone and you'll begin to walk like them, talk like them, and eventually live like them. It's as natural as breathing. Birds of a feather flock together. You've heard that phrase before, but let me tell you, it's not just a proverb, it's a principle that will determine the quality of your future. My mentor told me once, "Jim, you'll become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And when I stopped long enough to look at my circle, I saw the truth staring me in the face. My friends were broke, negative, drifting, casual in their habits, and without realizing it, I was becoming just like them. My income was their income, my mindset was their mindset. My excuses were their excuses. And I wondered why I couldn't break through. It wasn't because I lacked talent or desire. It was because I had surrounded myself with people who normalized mediocrity. And when mediocrity is normal in your circle, it becomes acceptable in your life. Think of it this way. If you spend enough time with people who complain all the time, before long, you'll find yourself complaining too. If your closest friends are careless with money, you'll find yourself slipping into the same habits because constant exposure makes the abnormal feel ordinary. If your circle avoids responsibility, avoids growth, avoids discipline, it's only a matter of time before you catch that same philosophy. Influence works like gravity. It pulls you without asking your permission. It shapes you even when you think you're choosing freely. And here's why this is so important. Your environment is more powerful than your intentions. You can intend to rise higher, but if your circle keeps you down, you'll fight a losing battle. It's like trying to swim upstream while your friends are floating downstream. You may push forward for a while, but eventually their current will wear you out. And when you're exhausted, you'll go the way they're going. That's why I say, your friends decide your future long before you do. Now, this might sting a little, but it's a truth worth facing. If you want to predict where you'll be 5 years from now, just look at your circle today. What are they reading? What are they studying? How do they spend their evenings? How do they treat their families? What are their standards for health, for money, for work, for growth? That's your future staring back at you. Because the rule about friends is simple. You don't rise above your circle, you sink or soar with it. And friend, once you grasp this, it changes how you see every relationship in your life. You stop asking, do I enjoy their company? And you start asking, what is this person doing to me? Are they making me stronger or weaker? Are they lifting me or dragging me? Are they stretching my vision or shrinking it? That question will cut through the fog and give you clarity. Because once you understand the hidden power of association, you realize that your future isn't decided out there in the marketplace or in the economy or in the government. It's being decided right now in the living rooms, the conversations, and the company you keep. So let me challenge you at this point. Take an honest inventory. Look closely at the people you spend the most time with. Not the people you wish you admired, but the ones who actually occupy your hours. And ask yourself, if I stay in this circle, is this the life I want to live? Do I want their results, their habits, their mindset? If the answer's no, then you know it's time to make some changes. Because nothing shapes your future more silently and more powerfully than the associations you choose to keep. And that brings us to the next step, because once you understand the power of association, the real question becomes, what kinds of people should you let go of? Who should you limit? And who should you deliberately pursue? That's where the rule about friends becomes practical. And that's exactly where we'll go next. Here's what most people don't want to admit. Some relationships are simply too costly to keep. It doesn't matter how long you've known someone. It doesn't matter if you grew up together. It doesn't matter if you once had fun or shared memories. If their influence is pulling you down, then keeping them close is robbing you of your future. Now that can sound harsh because loyalty is a powerful emotion. We don't like the idea of leaving people behind. But let me tell you the truth. Loyalty to the wrong people is just another form of self-sabotage. Because every day you spend with people who are careless, negative, or cynical is another day you lose momentum towards your own destiny. My mentor once told me, Jim, if you keep spending time with people who are going nowhere, don't be surprised when you arrive at the same destination. That stung, but it was true. Negative people will plant seeds in your mind, and those seeds will grow if you let them. Cynical people will water your doubts until you no longer believe in yourself. People who make excuses for their failures will encourage you to do the same. It's like letting weeds grow unchecked in a farmer's field. Weeds don't need permission. They don't need encouragement. They grow by default. And if you don't pull them out, they'll choke the very crop you worked so hard to plant. Friend, your mind, your spirit, your habits, they are the field of your future. If you allow weeds of negativity, cynicism, and mediocrity to grow in that field, don't be surprised when your harvest is nothing but regret. Now, here's the danger. Sometimes these people aren't openly destructive. They don't come shouting their negativity from the rooftops. Sometimes they're subtle. They smile at your dreams, but behind the smile is a quiet smirk. They nod when you say you want to do better, but then they slip in little phrases like, don't get your hopes up, or people like us don't get those kinds of breaks. Those little phrases are poison. They don't kill you in a day, but drip by drip they weaken your resolve. And if you don't catch it, one day you'll wake up realizing you've stopped dreaming, you've stopped trying, and you've accepted a life you never really wanted, all because of the company you kept. I know what some of you are thinking. But Jim, I can't just cut people out of my life. What will they think? Won't that make me selfish? Let me answer that with a question. Whose future are you responsible for, theirs or yours? If someone is draining you, poisoning your outlook, or pulling you backward, then keeping them close isn't kindness, it's weakness. And weakness won't serve either of you. By disassociating from those who drag you down, you give yourself a chance to rise, and sometimes by rising, you give them the only example that might inspire them to change. Staying stuck with them won't help them, and it will only destroy you. Think of pruning a tree. A good gardener knows that some branches must be cut away for the tree to grow stronger. If you leave every branch, even the dead ones, the tree wastes energy feeding what cannot bear fruit. But when you prune, the tree flourishes. Cutting off the wrong relationships works the same way. It's not an act of cruelty. It's an act of responsibility. You're choosing growth over decay, progress over comfort, future over nostalgia. So here's my challenge. Take a hard look at your circle and identify the people you must disassociate from. Be honest about it. Who is always negative? Who never pushes you to grow? Who excuses mediocrity and resents ambition? Write their names down and then decide. It doesn't always require a dramatic goodbye or a fight. Sometimes it's as simple as quietly moving your energy elsewhere, letting the distance grow naturally, and refusing to give your time and attention to people who don't deserve it. That's how you begin to prune your life. And once you've done that, you'll notice something remarkable. You'll feel lighter, you'll have more energy, you'll have more clarity. Because when you stop carrying people who refuse to move, you suddenly find you can run faster toward the life you want. But remember, not everyone needs to be completely cut out. Some people don't need disassociation, they need limitation. And that's where we're heading next, how to wisely manage the people you can't avoid without letting their influence decide your future. Now, let's talk about the second category, the associations you don't necessarily remove, but you learn to limit. See, not every relationship is all good or all bad. Some people bring value to your life, but they also carry habits, philosophies, or attitudes that can be dangerous if you absorb them in full. And here's the key lesson. Exposure is like nutrition. A little sugar won't kill you, but a steady diet will make you sick. In the same way, a little time with someone who has a different philosophy may be manageable, but too much of their influence will quietly shape you into something you never intended to become. So the art here is not disassociation, but careful limitation. Now, this applies to some of the closest areas of life. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's co-workers. Maybe it's people you must interact with as part of your daily environment. You can't always cut ties completely, and you don't need to, but you do need to set boundaries. You need to decide how much of their influence you will allow into your life. Because if you let it flow unchecked, you'll soon find their mindset seeping into your decisions, their cynicism clouding your optimism, their casualness lowering your standards. So you must treat their influence like you would treat medicine or dessert, carefully dosed, carefully measured, never allowed to dominate your daily diet. Let me give you a picture. Suppose you've got a relative who's always negative, always complaining, always ready with another reason why things won't work out. Now, you may not want to cut them off completely. They may even be someone you love dearly. But if you spend hours each week listening to their complaints, don't be surprised when you start repeating their words. Don't be shocked when their philosophy becomes your philosophy. The solution isn't cruelty, it's discipline. Visit them less often. Limit the conversations. Steer away from certain topics. Protect your mind like a gardener protects his soil. Because you know what happens if you let the wrong seeds get planted? The weeds don't ask your permission. They just grow. I had to learn this lesson myself. In my early years, there were people I respected, people I enjoyed, but they weren't going anywhere. They were satisfied with mediocrity, and while I didn't want to disassociate completely, I knew I couldn't give them unlimited access to my thoughts and my time, so I put them on a schedule. I decided when and how I would interact, and I stuck to it. That simple discipline saved me, because instead of spending major time on minor people, I learned to spend major time with those who challenged me, inspired me, and lifted me higher. And the others, I loved them, but I limited them. That's the secret. Here's a good rule of thumb. Never spend more time with someone than you can afford to become like them. If they're careless with money, a few minutes won't ruin you, but days and weeks of exposure will. If they laugh at discipline, a short interaction won't destroy you, but daily conversations will erode your seriousness. Always ask yourself, how much of their influence can I absorb without it taking root in me? Then measure your time accordingly. That's wisdom. That's balance. That's self-protection. And let me tell you something important. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your mind, your energy, or your future. Not even family. Love them, respect them, honor them, but protect your own destiny. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with the results of your associations. And if you don't manage them carefully, you'll pay the price in wasted years and unrealized potential. So here's the challenge. Identify the people in your circle who may not need to be cut off completely, but who must be limited. Decide the boundaries. Maybe it's less time. Maybe it's different topics. Maybe it's shorter visits. But don't leave it to chance. Set the limits and then keep them. Because if you don't control your associations will control you. And once you've mastered that discipline, you'll be ready for the most exciting part, deliberately pursuing the associations that can lift you higher, that can stretch your vision, that can make you more than you could ever become on your own. And that's where we're going next. Now we come to the most exciting and the most rewarding part of the rule about friends. It isn't only about what you must cut away, and it isn't only about what you must limit. Those are defensive moves, designed to protect your mind and your future from being poisoned by the wrong influences. But life isn't just about defense. Life is about building. It's about growing. It's about deliberately planting seeds that can produce a harvest far greater than you could imagine. And that means pursuing the right associations, people who stretch you, challenge you, lift you, and inspire you. If disassociation clears the weeds and limitation manages the pests, then pursuit is where you cultivate the rich soil that produces abundance. My mentor, Earl Schoaf, was that person for me. At 25 years old, I was broke, behind on my bills, out of answers, and embarrassed by my own life, and then I met a man who lived differently. He had wisdom in his words, discipline in his habits, generosity in his spirit, and results in his life that I wanted for myself. And when he let me into his circle, my whole world changed. In 5 short years, I went from being broke and full of excuses to being a millionaire with a new philosophy, a new future, and a life that was finally headed in the right direction. That transformation didn't come from luck. It didn't come from the economy. It didn't come from my circumstances changing overnight. It came from one powerful decision to pursue a better association. Now here's the principle. Proximity creates possibility. If you want to be better, you've got to be around better. If you want to raise your standards, you've got to be around people with higher standards. Because high standards rub off just as easily as low ones. And when you surround yourself with people who are disciplined, visionary, and focused, it becomes difficult to remain lazy, short-sighted, and careless. Their presence demands more from you. Their example raises your expectations. Their results remind you of what's possible. And slowly, almost without realizing it, you begin to climb higher simply because of the company you keep. Think of Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest men of his time. When asked how he built such a great fortune, he pointed not just to his own effort, but to the circle of wise advisors he deliberately gathered around him. He said, "If you want to know the secret of my success, look at my team." Carnegie understood this principle. None of us succeed alone. We rise on the shoulders of the people we choose to learn from, to work with, to associate with. That's why I say, don't wait for the right friends to find you. Go and find them. Pursue them. Invest in them. Put yourself in their presence. Because 1 hour in the right circle can change more about your life than 1,000 hours in the wrong one. Now let's make this practical. How do you pursue the right associations? First, look for people who already live the way you want to live. Study their results, study their habits, study their philosophy. Don't just listen to their words. Look at the fruit of their life. If you want wealth, find those who have built it with integrity. If you want health, find those who practice it daily. If you want wisdom, find those who have read, studied, and lived enough to possess it. Then, do whatever it takes to get around them. If you can't know them personally, start with their books. Start with their lectures. Start with their recordings. When I began, I didn't have access to 1,000 mentors, but I had access to 1,000 books. And by reading them, I was associating with the best minds of history. Books are silent mentors, and they can shape your philosophy just as much as flesh and blood teachers if you'll let them. Second, pursue people who make you slightly uncomfortable. If you're the smartest person in your circle is too small. If you're the most disciplined, the most ambitious, the most visionary, then you need a new circle. Because growth happens when you're stretched, and you can't stretch if you're always the strongest one in the room. Find people whose habits challenge yours, whose results intimidate you, whose vision forces you to think bigger. That discomfort is a gift because it reveals what you could become. And third, invest in those associations. Don't expect to get the benefits of great friendships, mentorships, and networks for free. Buy the book, pay for the seminar, take the mentor to lunch, show up consistently. Add value to them however you can, because associations are like gardens. The more you invest, the richer the harvest. Too many people treat their associations casually, waiting for chance encounters to shape their destiny. Don't make that mistake. Be deliberate. Choose with intention. Pursue with discipline. Protect with seriousness. So here's my challenge to you. Make a list of the people you admire most, the people who are living the kind of life you want. Then ask yourself, what would it take for me to get closer to them, to learn from them, to let their example rub off on me? It might mean changing where you spend your evenings. It might mean joining a new group. It might mean reading the books and listening to the tapes until their voices become familiar. Whatever it takes, do it. Because one new association pursued with passion can transform everything about your future. And that leads us to the next critical step. Now that you know who to disassociate from, who to limit, and who to pursue, you must take an honest inventory, because it's one thing to understand these categories in theory, it's another to apply them to your own life. And that's exactly what we'll do next. I'll show you how to evaluate your circle, how to measure the true effect of your friends, and how to make decisions that will shape your destiny. Here's something you cannot afford to leave vague or undefined. You must evaluate your circle. It's not enough to know that association matters. It's not enough to nod your head and say, yes, friends influence me. You've got to get practical, deliberate, and brutally honest about the people who occupy your time, your thoughts, and your daily conversations. Because whether you realize it or not, every person in your life is either a plus or a minus, an asset or a liability, fertilizer for your growth, or weeds that choke out your progress. And until you measure the true effect of those relationships, you'll drift along believing you're choosing freely, when in reality you're being shaped in silence. Now, how do you evaluate your circle? It begins with one simple but penetrating question. What is this person doing to me? Not what do I feel about them, not how long have I known them, not what do they mean to me sentimentally, but what are they actually doing to me? Do they make me stronger or weaker? Do they inspire me to stretch, or do they soothe me into settling? Do they lift me when I'm down, or do they anchor me there with another complaint, another excuse, another Me Too story of failure? You must answer those questions honestly, because they reveal the true direction of your associations. Let me give you an example. I once had a friend who, every time we got together, the conversation turned to complaints about the job, about the taxes, about the people in power, about how unfair everything was. And you know what? I started joining in. I started matching his tone. I began noticing more things to complain about in my own life. And at first, it felt harmless. It felt like we were just sharing, just blowing off steam. But then I realized every time I left his presence, I was heavier, not lighter. My energy was lower, not higher. My vision was smaller, not bigger. That was the evidence. The fruit of the relationship told me everything I needed to know. That's the test you must apply. Inspect the fruit. Don't be fooled by words, by appearances, by history. Look at the results in their life. If someone talks discipline but their habits scream neglect, believe the habits. If someone preaches success but their daily choices show compromise, believe the choices. If someone tells you they support you but secretly resent your progress, believe the feeling in your gut. Fruit never lies. The Bible says, by their fruits you shall know them. And that applies as much to friends as it does to anything else. Now here's another angle. Look not only at where they are, but where they're going. Because your associations are like train tracks, and if you're riding alongside someone, sooner or later you'll end up at the same station. So ask yourself, is this person's destination one I want to arrive at? If they keep living as they are now, what will their life look like 5 years from today? And do I want to share that outcome? If the answer is no, then staying on that track with them is a decision to share their future. And friend, you don't have to buy a ticket for that ride. You can step off, choose another train, and redirect your path. Of course, this takes courage. It's not easy to admit that some people you like, maybe even love, are quietly pulling you off course. It's not comfortable to face the fact that by keeping them close, you're choosing their future for yourself. But let me remind you, you're not responsible for everyone else's destiny. You're responsible for your own. And if that requires making tough evaluations and tougher decisions, then so be it. Because the cost of avoiding those decisions is far greater. A life lived below your potential, a future that never blossoms, a destiny decided by default instead of design. So here's my challenge to you tonight. Take out a sheet of paper and write down the names of your 5 closest friends, the ones you spend the most time with. Then beside each name answer honestly, what is this person doing to me? Where are they taking me? Do I want their results? Do I want their future? And if the answer is no, then you know what must come next. Some you'll need to disassociate from, some you'll need to limit, and some you'll need to pursue even more. But don't leave it unclear. Don't drift. Evaluate, decide, and act. Because once you've done this, once you've inspected the fruit of your friendships, you'll see clearly what must be done. And that's when the hardest part begins, having the courage to choose your future friends deliberately, even if it means letting go of the past. And that, friend, is where we're headed next. Now comes the part that tests the depth of your resolve the moment you must act on what you've discovered. Because it's one thing to evaluate your circle and admit the truth about who is lifting you and who is dragging you, but it's another thing entirely to take the step of letting go. And let me tell you plainly, this is where most people falter. They know in their heart that certain relationships have no business traveling with them into the future, but they hesitate, they stall, they hold on because they're afraid of the guilt. They whisper to themselves, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want them to think I'm selfish. I don't want them to think I've changed. And the truth is, you have changed, and that's the very reason you can't afford to stay. Here's a truth I learned from my mentor. Not everyone belongs in every chapter of your life. Some people were perfect for a season, but poisonous for a lifetime. Some walked with you through childhood, but cannot walk with you through maturity. Some fit the story of where you were, but they cannot fit the vision of where you're going. And that's not cruelty, that's reality. Growth always separates. When you rise, you don't rise with everyone at once. You rise step by step. And often that step takes you above those who refuse to climb. And if you insist on pulling them up with you when they're determined to stay where they are, you'll find yourself exhausted, discouraged, and stuck in the very place you were meant to leave behind. Letting go is not about arrogance. It's not about saying I'm better than you. It's about saying I'm responsible for me. If a man is drowning and he refuses to grab the rope, you don't jump in and drown with him. You offer the rope, you call for help, but you don't sacrifice your life for someone determined to sink. In the same way, you cannot sacrifice your future for the comfort of those who refuse to change. That's not loyalty, that's bondage. That's not kindness, that's weakness. And weakness won't serve either of you. I know this is hard. I know it feels like betrayal. But let me ask you, is it betrayal to protect your destiny? Is it betrayal to safeguard your family's future? Is it betrayal to honor the calling of your life? No, friend, it's not betrayal, it's responsibility. Your first duty is to your growth. Because if you don't become all you were meant to be, you won't have anything real to offer anyone else. You cannot lift others while you're being dragged down. You cannot inspire others while you're suffocating under their weight. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is to move ahead without them, to show them by your example what's possible. And if they ever decide to climb, they'll remember that you went first. Think of a tree. A wise gardener knows that some branches must be pruned for the tree to thrive. He doesn't hate the branches. He doesn't curse them. He simply knows they're not serving the future of the tree. They're draining energy that could be used to bear fruit elsewhere. So he cuts them away, and the tree flourishes. That's what letting go really is, pruning. It's not about hate. It's not about judgment. It's about ensuring that the best part of you has the chance to grow. So here's what I want you to do. Take that list of people you evaluated. Circle the ones who do not belong in the next chapter of your life. And then let them go. Maybe it's a quiet distancing, fewer calls, less time, less conversation. Maybe it's a direct decision to walk away. However you do it without guilt. Because you are not rejecting them as human beings. You are refusing to accept their philosophy, their habits, their limitations as your own. And that is not selfish. It's wise. Now, once you've created that space, once you've cleared the weeds and pruned the branches, you'll notice something powerful. A gap opens up. And nature hates a vacuum. That empty space is waiting to be filled. The question is, what will you fill it with? That's the opportunity we'll explore next. How to deliberately build a circle that elevates you, stretches you, and pushes you toward the future you deserve. Now that you've had the courage to prune, now that you've learned to let go without guilt, you stand at a crossroads that most people never reach. Because once you remove the wrong influences, you create space. And space is precious. Most people are so crowded with noise, with opinions, with obligations, that they never pause long enough to create a gap in their life. But when you do, you suddenly hold a rare opportunity, the chance to deliberately design your circle instead of inheriting it by accident. And friend, let me tell you, this is one of the most powerful choices you will ever make. Because the people you invite into that space, the ones you allow to sit close to your mind and your heart, will become the architects of your habits, your standards, and your destiny. The secret is this. Don't wait for these people to find you. Don't sit back hoping the right crowd will magically appear. Pursue them, seek them, invest in them. Go where they gather. Listen to their voices. Follow their example. Because high-value associations rarely knock on your door uninvited. You've got to step into their environment. You've got to show up at their table. You've got to prove through your hunger and your discipline that you belong in their presence. I've always said, if you want to change your life, change your library, change your calendar, change your circle. Put yourself in the path of better influences and better results will start to find you. When I met Earl Schoaf, I didn't wait for him to adopt me as a student. I pursued him. I listened. I asked questions. I followed. I absorbed. And in 5 years, that pursuit changed everything about my future. I went from broke and embarrassed at 25 to financially independent by 31, not because the world gave me a break, but because I had the courage to seek out someone who was already living the life I wanted to live. His example lifted me. His philosophy shaped me. His discipline challenged me. And that's what the right association does. It pulls you upward. Just by being around them, you begin to rise. Now, here's something most people overlook. You don't have to know every mentor personally to benefit from them. Books count, tapes count, seminars count. A library is a circle of friends, each book a voice, each author a companion. When I filled my shelves with 1,000 books, I was surrounding myself with 1,000 teachers, 1,000 mentors, 1,000 advisors who stretched my thinking, expanded my philosophy, and sharpened my understanding of the world. So if you can't yet afford to sit at the table of millionaires, sit at the table of books, if you can't yet walk with the wise in person, walk with the wise in print. The principle is the same. Who you spend time with will shape you, whether in the flesh or on the page. Here's another guideline. Find people who make you slightly uncomfortable. If you're the smartest, the most disciplined, the most ambitious in your group, you're in the wrong group. Comfort won't stretch you. Discomfort will. Growth happens in the gap between who you are and who they challenge you to become. So deliberately pursue circles where your excuses won't work, where your small goals look tiny, where your best habits are considered average. That tension, that pressure, that stretch, it'll do more for your growth than 1,000 hours of casual company. And don't forget this, you must invest. Pay the price to sit in the seminar. Buy the book, take the mentor to lunch, volunteer in the room where the wise are gathering. Associations are like gardens. If you plant little, you harvest little. If you invest much, you harvest much. The people who complain about not having the right friends are often the ones who never made an effort to seek, to give, to contribute. Don't let that be you. Be willing to invest time, money, energy, attention, because the return on that investment will be measured in years of accelerated growth. So here's my challenge to you. Once you've created space by letting go of the wrong people, don't waste the opportunity by filling it with random influences. Build with intention. Write down the names of people you admire, people who live by discipline, people who embody integrity, people whose results prove their philosophy. Then ask yourself, how can I get closer to them? Maybe it's reading their work, maybe it's showing up where they teach, maybe it's introducing yourself, maybe it's adding value in some way. Whatever it takes, pursue it. Because every step you take closer to the right circle is a step further away from the mediocrity you left behind. And once you begin to build this new circle, once you feel the pull of better associations, you'll notice something incredible. Your standards rise, your habits change, your vision expands, And it won't just affect you, it will ripple outward to your family, your children, your coworkers, your community. Because the rule of friends doesn't stop with you, it multiplies into every life you touch. And that, my friend, is what we'll talk about next. Here's something you must never forget. The rule about friends is not just about you. It doesn't end with your habits, your income, or your success. It reaches far beyond. It ripples outward like a stone dropped in a still pond, sending waves across every area of your life and eventually across every life you touch. That's why this principle is so serious. Because when you choose your associations, you're not only choosing your own future, you're choosing the future of your family, your children, your employees, your community, and even generations you'll never meet. That's how powerful this rule really is. Think about it. If you associate with laziness, you'll pass laziness down as a legacy. If you associate with discipline, you'll pass discipline down as a heritage. If you surround yourself with people who spend every penny, complain about every problem, and excuse every failure, don't be surprised when your children grow up with the same philosophy, because philosophy is contagious. But the reverse is also true. If you surround yourself with people who read, who grow, who save, who invest, who speak faith and not doubt, then that philosophy will seep into your household. Your kids will hear it, your spouse will feel it, your colleagues will absorb it. Without even realizing it, you'll have become a transmitter of something powerful and positive, and it all started with who you chose to be around. Let me share something from my own life. When I changed my associations, everything shifted. I began spending time with people who thought bigger, who set goals, who believed in growth, who invested in themselves. And as my life improved, my family's life improved. Suddenly, my children had different examples to look up to. Suddenly, the conversations in our home shifted. Instead of only talking about bills and problems, we talked about ideas, opportunities, and possibilities. That wasn't an accident. It was the ripple effect of association. One change in my circle created waves that reshaped the culture of my home. History gives us the same lesson. Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest men of his day, didn't just build a fortune for himself. Because of the wise circle he built, advisors, partners, visionaries, he built an empire of steel that employed thousands and shaped the course of industry. And when he decided to give it all away, building libraries and schools across the world, that too was the ripple effect of association. His friends and advisors encouraged him to think beyond his own wealth, to think in terms of legacy. And today, generations later, millions of people are still touched by the decisions of a man who surrounded himself with the right circle. Now here's the sobering side. If you don't take this rule seriously, if you ignore it and keep casual company with the wrong people, the ripple effect still happens, but in the wrong direction. Your standards drop, your habits weaken, your vision shrinks, and all of that spreads outward too. Your children copy your habits, your friends mirror your attitudes, your coworkers reflect your energy, and without meaning to, you become the source of decline instead of the source of growth. That's why you cannot treat this as casual. This rule is deciding not just your destiny, but the destiny of everyone who touches your life. So ask yourself this. When people look back at your life, when your children and grandchildren inherit the atmosphere of your philosophy, will they thank you or will they resent you? Will they say, because of the company he kept, our whole family was lifted? Or will they say, because he never chose better, we stayed small? Friend, you have the power to decide that story today. By choosing better associations, by pursuing higher circles, by letting go of mediocrity, you can create ripples of greatness that flow far beyond you. And that brings us to the final challenge. We've talked about disassociating from the wrong people, limiting the careless ones, pursuing the right ones, evaluating your circle, and having the courage to prune and plant anew. We've seen the ripple effect that extends from your choices. Now the question is, what will you do about it? Because knowledge without action is just another excuse. And excuses are what got you stuck in the first place. So let's put it all together and close with the challenge that will decide your future. So here we are, friend, at the end of our time together. And if you've stayed with me this long, I want you to pause and really let this sink in. Because what we've talked about today is not casual advice. It is not a nice-to-know idea. It is the rule that will decide the rest of your life. Your friends, your circle, your associations, they are not just casual company, they are the architects of your destiny. They are silently writing the script of your habits, your philosophy, your income, your future, and eventually your legacy. And you cannot afford to treat this lightly. You cannot shrug it off and say, well, I'll think about it later. Because while you wait, while you delay, your circle is already working on you, shaping you, pulling you one way or another, either closer to the life you desire or deeper into the life you dread. Let's summarize. First, you learn the hidden power of association, how influence works, quietly, almost invisibly, until one day you wake up and realize you've become the average of the people you spend the most time with. Then you discovered the three categories of relationships. Some you must disassociate from because their presence is poison. Some you must limit because their influence in large doses will undo your progress. And some you must pursue because their example will lift you to heights you could never reach on your own. From there, we talked about how to evaluate your circle with honesty, not by what you feel, but by what they're doing to you, by the fruit their life produces, by the destination their road is leading them toward. And then we address the courage it takes to let go without guilt, to prune the branches so your life can grow stronger. After that, we turn to the deliberate pursuit of better associations, to the discipline of investing in mentors, books, seminars, and people who stretch you. And finally, we saw the ripple effect, how your circle doesn't just decide your life, it decides your families, your children's, your employees, and your communities. So here's the challenge, simple but not easy. Tonight, make a list of your 5 closest friends. Write their names on paper. Then ask yourself with brutal honesty, where are they going? And if I stay with them, is that where I want to go too? Don't sugarcoat it. Don't excuse it. Answer honestly. And if the answer is no, then you have a decision to make. You may need to disassociate. You may need to limit. Or you may need to pursue a whole new circle. But whatever the answer, make it. Because if you delay, if you leave it to chance, you are letting someone else decide your destiny. And that is too great a price to pay for comfort. I know it's not easy. I know it's uncomfortable. But remember, growth always separates. If you rise, you won't rise with everyone. But rise you must, because your family is counting on you. Your future self is counting on you. Generations yet unborn are counting on you. And the choice you make about your circle today will echo in their lives tomorrow. That's how serious this is. So let me end with this. Don't just listen and agree. Act. Write the names. Make the decisions. And start building a circle that elevates you, challenges you, stretches you, and pushes you toward the life you were meant to live. Because the rule about friends is deciding your future whether you acknowledge it or not. Better to acknowledge it, better to act on it, better to shape it deliberately than to suffer its effects by default. And if this message has stirred you, if it has opened your eyes to the truth about your associations, then I want you to take the next step with me. Because once you understand the rule about friends, the next lesson is just as powerful. The hidden law that quietly shapes your whole future. In that message, I'll show you the invisible law that multiplies every choice you make, the principle that explains why small disciplines or small errors compound into enormous results over time. You don't want to miss it, because this law, combined with the rule about friends, will decide everything about your life. So click here, and let's keep building together. Because your future's too important to leave to chance, and your destiny's too valuable to hand over to the wrong circle. Choose wisely, act boldly, and remember, your circle is your destiny.